I want engineers to get as passionate as about their product as they are maybe about their code and their architecture, right? And so it's easy for us to just go through what we're used to, but a good way of measuring that is just seeing if we're as excited about our customers and as we are about our users and how they're experiencing our app.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Kent C. Dodds, joined by my friend Lucas Wargha. How are you doing, Lucas?
I'm good. Thanks.
Good. I think I've mispronounced your last name. Is it more like a V sound than a W sound?
More like a V. It's Hungarian, so it's a little funny spellings. So Varga, but
Yeah,
Varga is
Varga.
fine.
Okay, great, great. Well, Lucas and I go back quite a ways. Lucas actually lives here in Utah, coming in from not from Utah right now, but but yeah. I am excited to chat with you, Lucas, about product engineering and what skills, durable skills that people can learn in this new age of AI assisted development. And so, yeah, why don't we fill up our own context window a little bit on who you are and what it is that you do, and we can dive into our conversation from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Lucas Wargha. I'm from Brazil. I'm an engineering manager right now at FamilySearch, which is we do software for genealogy. In fact, is I think the largest genealogy organization in the world. It's a free nonprofit, but our mission is pretty cool and simple, which is help people discover and connect with their family, like both past and present, which in my opinion is knowing where you came from help like changes how you see yourself and how you do things in life. And so it's pretty meaningful work, and I love working there. And my team specifically works on memories, which is a tool to help people keep stuff that matters, right? So audio, images, stories, and trying to bridge the gap, because we feel like people are so much more than just names, dates, and places. And so our team tries to create a channel so people can put their memories out there. But yeah, I've been a FamilySearch for a few months now. Prior to that, I was working at a company called RedX, doing I was also an engineering manager there for a couple of years, and yeah, it's been awesome.
I really, so personally, I do use FamilySearch. One of my favorite things to do with FamilySearch is when I'm in a setting with other people, I'll invite them to install the FamilySearch app, and then we can both press like find nearby relatives, and then it'll see how closely related you are to the people who are close by, which I think is pretty cool. So you mentioned earlier that knowing where you came from kind of helps contextualize your life and everything. And that is related, I think, to the mission that you, right at the start, talked about what the mission of the FamilySearch is. And so I wonder how important, in a similar way that knowing where you came from helps inform the way that you live your life. How does knowing what the mission of the company that you're working at help inform the decisions and the mindset that the engineers have?
Um, well, yes. It- it- there are many ways of looking at this. The way I see is that engineers for way too long, they acted as just kind of task takers, right? Like just give me something to do and I'll go do it. And like I don't want to think about all this other thing, like why we're really doing this. And even if they knew a little bit about the company because they had to go through some HR training, it was somewhat disconnected. And for me, the more you understand the company vision and then start drilling down through business outcomes that you're trying to achieve and then product outcomes for the different products, um, it completely changes how you build things, because you start questioning things that you wouldn't otherwise if you were just getting a task, right, assigned on a JIRA board.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, like let's make a very practical example of this. Can you remember any tasks that your team is? So you're like, to be clear, you're an engineering manager over at FamilySearch, so you're not necessarily doing the implementation. Um, what are the types of tasks that you receive, and have you ever gotten one that's for your team where you're like, that doesn't quite fit with the mission, or that this is how does this help us push this mission forward? Like, can you give us a specific example where something like that happened to you?
Yeah, and so part of something that we're going through right now. We have this big backend system that we're like rewriting, something that was worked on for many, many years, this legacy system. And um, part of the exercise that we're going through is how do we justify a massive rewrite cost and get become able to justify that against specific business and product outcomes, right? And so, and as we go through that rewrite and or that restructure, refactor, the more we understand our product and where we actually want to go, it may change how we want to rewrite this. There are some parts that maybe we want to under engineer on purpose because that would be faster and effective, and we can bring other things that truly hit the mark with our product and business outcomes that we're trying to hit. So I don't know how specific I can get with that. I can get more with that, but ultimately it's just even things that this is just like adaptive maintenance. Just as long as you have tools that you're maintaining, you have to go through this kind of work, and being able to even those things tying them to specific business outcomes have been changing how we do those and what capabilities we add so that we can then drive our mission further later, instead of just, oh, well, a rewrite is just as long as it works like it worked before, then we're good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like if you were to just give this task to an agent, like here's an example recently. Bun was migrated from Zig to Rust. And in that case, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like make sure all the tests still pass. Like this type of migration, maybe we just don't, we want to change as little as possible. But for something that's been around for a really long time, I think it makes a lot of sense for you to evaluate what made sense back then and what doesn't make sense anymore, de-emphasize the things, or maybe even completely remove features that nobody's using. And so that comes into factoring in traffic patterns and that sort of thing too. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you want to be more intentional about a rewrite rather than just like, okay, let's just give it to an agent and it will rewrite everything. Instead, you have to kind of map things. Can you like, is that something that you have intentionally done? Is like as you're evaluating this sort of migration, you look at the landscape of analytics and everything, and decide what features to emphasize and what to de-emphasize, that sort of thing?
This is a recent project I started getting myself into, and so, but that's definitely an area that I want to get right. I want to get as much analytics and customer feedback so that I can then make decisions that will actually drive the ultimate outcome that we have for the product.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you get that customer feedback? Like it's your customers are many. You like, so there are some companies where it's a B2B. We've got like 50 customers and only 5 of them pay like all the bills, and so we know exactly who we want to go and talk to. But for you, there are just so many different people. Many of them have different goals and jobs to be done for the software. So how do you know who to talk to, and how do you get in contact with them?
I think one of the really important steps in product engineering over as a whole is just understanding who, being able to map out your customers, the different personas that you're trying to talk to. And ultimately for us, I mean, our customer base is the whole world. Our software is deployed in dozens of countries and dozens of languages, and all different ages and backgrounds, right? And so sometimes it gets hard to really determine who is the customer that we're trying to impact with whatever decision we're making, right? And so for me is being very intentional about knowing the different personas and trying to map them out. And it's hard. It's never going to be perfect, but ultimately start having conversations is just is the beginning. I think an experience I've had even here in Brazil, I went in and talked to a couple of customers, people that use our tools, and I just asked them, tell me, what would you do? Like if you wanted to just add a new memory about your family. And it was surprising to me because it was different because of cultural aspects, that's what a specific word in the website, the way it was translated, what it meant in Portuguese, what it would mean in the US. And for me, that was like, oh my gosh, I would have never found that out if I didn't know those customers, right? And so being able to map them out, and like I said, it's never going to be perfect, but really trying to understand our customer way better than we understand our code. That is where the value is at.
That is really poignant because for engineers, we treasure understanding the code, and like there are, especially now, a lot of people are saying like you have to read every line of code that the AI is creating because it's going to hallucinate, it's going to do all of this stuff. And wherever you fall on that spectrum, because of course there are people on the opposite side of that, I think that what's even more important than any of that is understanding the customer and the product, because you don't want to build the wrong thing, and certainly you don't want to build it faster and spending more tokens and all of that as well. And so I recently listened again to a book called Competing with Luck by Clay Christensen, where he talks about jobs theory. And one of the things that really stuck out to me in that book was how he said that qualitative data is more valuable than quantitative data. Like really just talking with people, going into the store and watching people's behavior there, or what, in his world, it's products are like all products, not just software. So maybe we can't really go into the store unless you're building a point of sale system. but yeah, like that experience of talking with people and their lived experience with your software can just tell you a lot about the things that are important to your customers. How do you avoid over-indexing on a particular customer's use case that is not very representative? Like, have you thought about that at all?
I have, and it's a tough problem, right? Especially when you build tools that have so many different personas, which I think a lot of the big companies, that's what they go through all the time. And I think ultimately just getting as much data as you possibly can, and seeing, you're never going to be able to make everyone happy about your product at all times in all different customer bases. Everyone's going to want something that maybe you don't want to do it intentionally. But being able to represent that as closely as possible when you see needs, I think that's what helps me. There are different tools. I forgot the name of the tool, that it just builds a different board and people can upvote, and you can start using even now natural language, so AI, to group them into different personas and different specific types of challenges that they have. And so for me, again, I'm still trying to figure out that science. I think the drive is more important than just the how we're going to get pragmatic about it initially, as many companies are not doing that at all, right? You just open an average app and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not good. So
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just getting as much data and trying to create some science behind this thing that is not really a science.
Yeah. The last thing that you want is to open up an app, or for somebody to open your app and think like they built this for somebody, but it's not for me. Like,
yeah, or you open up the app and you have almost the org chart described in the different tabs of the app, right? Oh, this team built this thing, and it just looks and feels completely different, right? Because you're not really thinking about the whole. And I feel like personally, engineers historically, especially over the last 15 to 20 years, and I've been guilty of that. We've been acting sometimes as like really as contractors with very expensive benefits, glorified contractors, I would say, because you're still part of the company. But we're not, whenever we build something, we're not really going all the way and seeing what we're building, right? And so the ability to see things from a customer's eye, that's where I see us being able to going back and making the change that we want to make. I was thinking about a case from Google, and I don't know how much of the story is true. It just came to mind now, where they had a requirement. They wanted to make Gmail load faster. So as soon as you put in your email and your password, that would load faster when you pressed enter. And they tried a bunch of different things. Nothing was, I mean, it would make a difference, right? They're trying to increase compute and all this distributed system stuff that you do to make your website go faster, right? And ultimately someone was like, wait, I got some data. So they thought about getting some data that 90% of the users that start typing their passwords, they will get logged in the next minute or two. So what they did is that they started loading on the background. As soon as they typed their email, they started loading like in a server and caching all that data. So as soon as they had their password and they were authenticated, like all of their emails were already there. And so like being able to think like that, oftentimes like a product manager wouldn't necessarily just go and think through that, right? They were just
Mm.
engineers were waiting for a product manager to tell them what to do, and product managers were doing what they could with whatever limited technical skills they might have had. And I think that's a cool example of like how product engineers would be able to make meaningful impact there.
Yeah. I love that example. A question that I get pretty often from people is, okay, so what is the difference between a product engineer and a product manager? It sounds like you're just telling me I need to stop doing software engineering and start doing product managing, and I don't want to do that. And lots of people are like, I don't even want to be the agent orchestrator, whatever that job is going to be. Like, I don't like that. But what I'm hearing is that there actually still is a significant difference between what a product manager does and what a product engineer does. And using that technical expertise and the understanding of the system, which is still very valid and valuable, is something that distinguishes a product engineer from a product manager.
Yeah, ultimately, I don't know where this is gonna land, right? Things are evolving so fast, and AI is as bad today as it will ever be. It will keep getting better. But what I realized, and I've questioned that before, is that I've seen companies over the years, because of this fear of doing product stuff from engineers, they start creating more roles, right? So then they start
Mm.
creating, you have a product manager role, and then you have a technical program manager, or just a program manager, and then a project manager to manage your just the delivery of your project. And maybe you have a product owner and your scrum master. And so you have like all of these roles, and ultimately all we're trying to do is build awesome tools that make the world a little
Mm.
better, right?
Mm.
For our customers. And so I mean, I think ultimately what I tell my team, for example, is I work with a bunch of product engineers. Maybe you are more UX focused if you're a UX designer on the org chart right now, or maybe you're more focused on the like the project structure and the communication cross team. But ultimately, I just want all of us to become product engineers. And I don't think you need, especially as we evolve, I don't think we will need to know all the ins and outs of writing code to be able to do that.
Yeah, that resonates with me. My question then is, how do you make product engineers out of software engineers? And related to that, like, how do you communicate to the with the engineers? How do you get them to understand and care about what the actual users are experiencing? How do you get them to push back, even though maybe that's not necessarily in your best interest, right?
Yeah.
But like, you want them to care, you want them to understand the user, you want them to turn into product engineer. So like, are there specific things that you're doing to facilitate that? Is it just conversations? Is it like a cultural shift? What is that?
The way I've been thinking about this, and it's hard. There's so many things, and a lot of them are very subjective, right? Like, oh, we just need to have some more empathy. But what does that even mean?
Yeah,
Something that
yeah.
I've been trying to do specifically is let's stop owning disciplines. Like, stop the assembly line. Like, I can't tell you how many times a feature is released and it says it's only available on Android or it's only available on web. And you go to this presentation, it's a really cool feature. It's like, oh, I can't use it because I'm on iOS and I don't have my
Hmm.
my computer on
Hmm.
me. So, or within our own engineering teams, oh, we can't do this. We need to wait for this backend guy to be able to do that, or we need permission from this other product team. And so one very clear thing that I'm trying to change is, instead of assigning developers stories or tasks, assigning them more like epics and milestone types of work where they own holistically the work. And if that work isn't completed until it's done on mobile, then it's not completed until it's done on mobile. And it's kind of up to you as an engineer. And you're extremely bright as an engineer. And I believe that each of them can go and develop holistically that feature. And that doesn't mean that they may not need help from a database architect or someone to be able to take that feature from beginning to end. But a very clear way for me is just, you own that feature, which means you might have to go and talk to a bunch of customers and
Hmm.
understand how that feature that you're owning will ultimately impact things. And you might have to go talk to stakeholders and people that before you were just totally shielded from. So that, I mean, there's many ways, but that's one specifically that I'm trying to really like stop the assembly line, right? We do this, we get the entity from the backend team, and they had their own process they had to go through, and then we do the front end, and then we might have to do some stuff on mobile, and then we pass it off to QA, and I don't know. So that's just one thing I've been trying to do.
I like that a lot. So I in my experience at bigger organizations that have where you basically are shipping your org chart. The reason that happens is I was going to say it's not by accident, but I think it is by accident. It's just natural that you're going to do this because it's just easier to say, okay, every day I go to work, I get a task, and I work in my little silo, and I work with the same people, and then I hand this off to this person or whatever. But what you're saying is I own adding memories to people, like in general. I don't know, like some specific part, like file uploads for memories, and that's going to impact web and Android and iOS. And so I don't know Android and iOS. I'm just going to be responsible for the web part. Am I, as a product engineer, empowered to go and talk to the teams that are in charge of the other pieces that are related, maybe even the back end pieces too? Am I empowered to go and talk to them and be like, hey, this is my epic, this is my milestone. I'm going to need some time on your calendar or and priorities in your world. Like, how does that, how is that sort of thing managed? And it sounds like you're actually kind of in the middle of trying to make this happen. But what is your vision on that?
Yeah, it's definitely tricky, but that it's kind of like what you described. Um, if you own something, you own something. You don't own the technology, right? And so you might have to get time on people's calendar, or you may go and say, "Hey, I'm going to try to put a PR out there, and I don't know if it's going to be good." And the more AI improves, I think we're going to get more and more confident that even if we don't know Kotlin, if we're doing Android or whatever is the technology on the back end, if you're a web developer, that you can describe something and it will have higher quality output. So you may not have to do that handoff still like as much as we still have to do some today. I think it's a lot better right now. But yeah, I think it just requires having a different vision of what work looks like, right? You're not getting into work every morning and now you have to finish that story and you estimated 2 days, so you have to finish in 2 days. Maybe every epic or every milestone starts with a big research spike. Who should I involve? And even more than just the product itself. Well, we finished this. Oh, we might have to update some customer support articles. Like I have to be thinking more about that, right? And again, not to say that we don't need all the other roles. Engineers would just do literally everything, but I'm just trying to say that one of the reason why some products that are big products, and I was opening my banking app and you just, oh, this is so bad the other day. The reason for that is because a bunch of engineers, very competent engineers, got stories assigned to them, but and they got it done to the whatever requirements were given to them. But there hasn't been this whole like how if I owned the ultimate outcome of me delivering this thing, would I be fired or would I be okay? And so being able to think holistically like that is where I think it's at. And organizationally is just hard, especially for large organizations where you have like very complex org charts and teams they need to reach out to. But I think we ought to figure out a way.
Yeah. It sounds like I have a couple of thoughts that are just coming to me as we're talking, but it sounds like you need to have some concept of like stack owners. So like, yeah, I own pretty much the Android stack. I own the iOS stack. I own this, but then you have product engineers who coordinate between those. And as I was thinking of that, I'm like, isn't that what a product manager is? And so at the same time, like I think that AI is, as you mentioned, it is kind of consolidating these roles and responsibilities. And if I'm the web person in charge of file upload for memories, um, like I think that is okay for me to go to these different stack owners and be like, hey, like this is the feature that I am shepherding along. I have been given higher up approval, and like I need your time to accomplish this. And I don't know, big company politics are always going to be a thing. But just saying like, no, this is a priority for the company. I need your time to review this PR, and if you're not happy with it, then you do it or something. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky, right? But I think organizations that will thrive are the ones that will figure that out.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
like how to
Yeah,
make that communication work and prioritization work. And maybe at some point there isn't even a stack team. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be anyone ever in charge of a stack, because I think that it's good. Ownership is really good for stack level things. But maybe at some point we get to a point where that's not necessary anymore. I don't know, and I don't know what that looks like, because you don't want to mess
yeah,
like everyone just pushing things out there on every team. But I think there's an
yeah.
opportunity for us to level up there.
Yeah, I wonder if it is more like a specialist. Like I have experience in this area, and I can kind of shepherd along these things, and yeah, whatever it ends up really being, it is all about the communication between the stakeholders, the both the technical side of things as well as the product side of things, and it's everybody being on the same page. Is like, do you have meetings with your engineers to help like bring them up to speed on what users are doing, and like, do you facilitate the engineers talking with users or talking with support? Like, how do you manage that? Like, how do you fill into their context window what the needs of the product are?
Well, I definitely encourage engineers to be talking to users. I've been I've been trying to invite them more and more. And at some point, I think should be just almost the expectation that you're talking to at least one user every other week, like one per iteration, and watching them use your product, or just using the product yourself and being that user. And so, I, yeah, I'm trying to initially facilitate that. I haven't been super pragmatic, like I have a perfect system, but but I want to. I think I'm not sure if it was DoorDash. It was like a food delivery company. They did something a while ago where every single engineer had to go and deliver food using their app as a driver or
Mm,
be a customer. That might be an easy one, just ordering some food. But like just going through an experience and recording that and saying, "Hey, this is what I learned." And I think I saw a study about that. I don't know if it's DoorDash, but what they found is that a lot of really awesome ideas came just because engineers were looking at their product from the user side,
mm.
and that they weren't otherwise getting just from other roles, just talking to customers. And so,
Yeah, I sorry to interrupt.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to relate to that. I had my son wanted to start getting into programming, and I have this relatively new course, Practical TypeScript, that's good for just total beginners. And so I was helping him get that set up on a different computer that didn't have any of the tools installed and everything, and following my path for somebody in that situation. Revealed a number of things to me about what confused him. Now he's 11 or 12, and so it's a little bit different for him being so young. My target audience is a little bit older. But yeah, it's really telling to just pretend you are a user and use the thing. It's really good to watch users use your thing, but if you can pretend you are a user and actually use the thing, that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I thought I have following this line just came to mind is um, engineers have, like I alluded to it earlier, have been very used to consuming stories,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And in my opinion, there's two types of people in the world: creators and consumers. I want to be a creator. There's people that act and people that are acted upon. And I think we all take both roles in different aspects of our life. Sometimes I'm just consuming something, right? But I think the level of our fulfillment has a lot more to do with the ratio through which we create versus consume. And so being able to truly understand the value that something is creating to specific people and making software more about the people rather than just the code, for both the people writing the software and people consuming your software, is a fantastic way of us becoming product engineers. And you're doing courses right now, and I don't know what learning will look like because it's not as uh, objective, like how do you define if someone is a good or not good product engineer? Do you have a lead code type of exercise for product engineers? And I don't know how
Mm.
people in your space will do that. But I think having that mentality and being able to create a system around that is how we will be able to get engineers to truly level up and become creators, right? That, for me, that's the most exciting thing about writing software, is just the ability that I have to just create something. And now the cool thing is that I get to do that at a way larger scale, because now I don't have to be worried if I'm using the right type in TypeScript. Maybe I do for a little longer, but I think soon I'm not going to have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder, because you're working at a big company, if um, like, how do you balance um, improving the user experience of the existing solution that you have versus uh, adding the features or filling the gaps that your users are experiencing? Like, do you spend equal amount of time on these, or like, how do you prioritize the needs of the customer? In my mind, I think there are actually probably a lot of things that need to change in the software, whether that be improvements to existing experience or new features. What is your process for prioritizing those things?
I think we started this conversation talking about that rewrite, right? We have to do this massive backend rewrite, which isn't, even with AI, it's not a simple task. It's very complex, distributed system. And for me, that balance always comes from being able to link features to opportunities, and
Hmm.
opportunities to product and business outcomes to company vision, right? As long as you can do that, maybe you're only working on new feature and just doing the bare minimum, just maintaining some things. And by the way, maybe the decision is it's time to kill that feature, because that's costing us whatever in maintenance. And so for me, as long as I can drive whatever decision, or whatever feature or opportunity that we have back all the way to increasing a certain metric that we care about, that's uh, that's how we, like, I find that we can add value. Like, what we use a FamilySearch, we use a lot of Teresa Torres, like a continuous discovery model. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of her in the product engineering world. That is fantastic. I've learned so much from doing that. But essentially, you go through this exercise where you create something we call an OST. I think it's object solution opportunity solution tree. So you go from like business outcome to product outcome to opportunities, then you go down to solutions instead of trying to figure out like just features, right? So we're
Hmm.
going away from developing features to actually developing solutions that bubble up to the greater goal. And for me, as long as we can represent that well, I feel good about building something.
Hmm.
Again, hard to make that into a perfect science, but I think Teresa, on her book, she did a good job of doing that as science a little more.
Yeah, we'll make sure that that is linked to in the notes of the show. I was going to say that, like, you mentioned you want to link features to opportunities to business outcomes, and I think what you just said, it's not necessarily features; it's just work that or activities that you can be involved with, and maybe once you've mapped those into the opportunity decision tree or whatever it was that's called. We'll have to look at that. But once you've mapped those, it becomes a lot easier because you look at the bottom where you say, okay, here's the business outcome. Like, let's prioritize things according to biggest business outcome. And then we look at what feature is attached to that, or what activity is attached to that. And that's how we decide which activities to go through first.
Yeah. And the power of doing that is that helps engineers hit closer to home, because sometimes a company will
Mm.
have a goal but that doesn't directly impact them like on their day to day, and we say it should, but sometimes it doesn't, meaning sometimes a company has a goal. I don't know, let's hit this X amount in revenue, right? I work at a nonprofit right now, it's really hard to do that because we don't have a revenue target, but we have other really cool targets, right? But so you have this target revenue, and sometimes you're developing this internal tool that keeps things moving. Like, how does that even impact that revenue? And being able to have great business leaders that drill it down, and ultimately you have your product outcome, and maybe all you care about is that whatever, maybe you're building this internal tool and you want to be able to help customer support solve tickets 25% faster.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start coming up with all these different potential solutions. And now you know that as long as you're working on them and your goal is to hit that target, which is like your org is approving for you, you know that you're working on the most important thing you could possibly be working, which is a power for engineers, right? Like you just know that what you're doing matters, even though you may not see perfectly how, like you don't have to justify your existence all the way to like, how am I actually generating business or a specific amount of revenue for the company.
Yeah, yeah. Where do these opportunities or these different activities come from? Because sometimes I think sometimes the business outcome is where you start, and you actually are working your way backward from, like, we need to hit this revenue target, or we need to hit this number of active users or whatever. How do you work backward into knowing what features need to be implemented, or what friction needs to be removed to get to those targets?
I think it's a lot of, again, understanding the customer and getting as much data as you possibly can, right? And with AI, and you get all these transcription of different interviews and user feedback and app store reviews, and so you can gather a lot of those things that way. From like specifically, I think we rely a lot still on just leaders to have as much data as they can. So, for example, suppose we have a business outcome of increasing our revenue by 20%, and we gather as much data as we can, and we sign off as an organization that we feel like one of our product outcomes may be that we have to increase by 20% retention month over month. So like we have users that come at least once a month, and then if we do that, and so being able to do that in every step of the way, it gets a little diluted by the way you get to the end of the tree, especially in a really large org. But I think, yeah, being able to have a system where you can trust that you're ultimately going to get to the your correct business outcome is where it's at. And I think it's also okay to fail cheap and fail fast. You start with a business outcome, and you think that if you increase 20%, it's going to make a meaningful difference. You have to be able to go and continuously check in, right? Part of the CI/CD, and just say, actually, we developed all these features for a few months, and we have to be willing to just throw them in the trash and say, let's go develop the next ones, and let's just think that what's the product outcome that we even care about, because what we thought would actually move the needle didn't. And so being able to pivot, that's where a lot of organizations have a hard time with, because they put all this investment in it. There's this sunk cost fallacy. Oh, we've done all of this software, and especially before, where software was so expensive, every line of code was so expensive, and they had a hard time. But then they had to start spinning up more teams to maintain all of those tools that were actually not fulfilling the measure of their creation and from the get-go. Anyways, hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, it does. It makes me think that you have to be really careful to make sure that the goals that you set, the business outcomes you're going for, are incentivizing proper behavior. Because you could say, okay, well, we need to have an increase in our monthly retention rate, so let's just send an email to everybody,
Sure.
and now we're spamming people, right? Like, so you just have to be holistically understanding the customer experience and asking the questions, why don't they? And is it really just because they forgot? Okay, well, so sending in a reminder email is a good way to remind them, but it may not be a good way to incentivize them to come back. And so you have to dig a little deeper. Why did they forget? And how can we make this more naturally memorable, or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, and the cool thing about having every engineer becoming a product engineer is that you're no longer delegating all the responsibility all the way up to a stakeholder 5 layers up, because maybe you have an engineer 5 layers down that will question that and say, why don't we just do this instead? Because now that engineer is finally thinking outside of the box, outside of the little world of their own JIRA board that they're grown accustomed to, right? And so now you have a lot of people that are owners in some way, and I do believe there's different weights, but you open the doors for real feedback from the people actually building the product, and maybe they think that there's a bunch of different opportunities that we're not even or product outcomes that we're not even pursuing, but maybe we should pursue. And so getting engineers to start thinking about that more holistically, like it's such a massive ROI if you do it right, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this is why it's so important for engineers to be the ones who are developing a product mindset. Just like in your Gmail performance improvement example, it was like the other people may not have realized that there was an opportunity for things to be faster. So as an engineer, you're like, oh, I can see from this data or from this customer experience interview that I was just watching or I read or I was conducting myself. I can see that this is probably an explanation for why we're getting drop off on our conversion flow or whatever. And I know how we can solve that because I understand the technical limitations and opportunities that there are. And I just never brought it up before because I know it would be really expensive. But now that I can tie it to a business outcome, I can see that it's actually worth that work. So I'll bring it up and I'll say, hey, you know what? If we spent like 3 weeks working on this, we could improve the performance of this and our retention would be way better. And they'd be like, yes, do that. And it's not the sort of thing that a typical product manager would have necessarily have thought of.
Yeah, 100%. I think I had my eyes open a lot this year. I went a FamilySearch. We have this event that we hold once a year called RootsTech. It's the biggest genealogy conference in the world. So people fly from all over the world to come and attend. And FamilySearch, as being the host, has like a big area there, and we have the different booths for the different products that we offer. So I was there representing Memories, and I'm like a brand new engineering manager on the team, and I had several engineers on my team with me, and we started watching users doing just going through things that they had to do and they were having a hard time. They would come to us and ask questions, and I was like, oh my goodness, like how come I never thought about that? Or this is so bad and it's such a quick fix. But I wouldn't think like stakeholders or a product owner 2 layers up may not think about that. But as soon as
Mm.
we got engineers to watch those users using the app, or mobile apps or web apps, I was like, duh, we could just cache this thing, and like instead of showing this weird, like this is just such a weird behavior, but empowered us so much. And so for me, being able to get to a point where engineers can be thinking at that level and then surface that will be so powerful for organizations.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm going to try and figure out how to convert software engineers into engineers so that we can have that kind of main character energy, like you were talking about earlier, being a creator rather than just a producer, or rather a converter of JIRA tickets into implementation. That's the replaceable thing that we need to get people to stop doing.
Yeah.
So Lucas, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. As we wrap up, I want to get a homework assignment from you. What is one thing, like a specific thing, somebody could write it down on a check list and check it off because they actively did it? One thing that could get them to improve their product engineering capability.
um well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I'm a fan, and I mean, you taught me to love web development, and love your courses, and yeah, so
Thank
so
you.
it's crazy for me to be here talking to you. So I'm a fan. um, I think a specific action item that I can think of is uh, know your customer better than you know your code.
Mm,
And because guess what, like maybe at some point you don't have to know your code at all, or very little of it, and if you don't know your customer, it will be hard for you to prove your value. And so I think a good measurement of that is sometimes we get into a meeting and we're really passionate as engineers about this new column and why it shouldn't be like this, or why we're using a reducer here in React, or and not something else. And I want engineers to get as passionate as about their product as they are maybe about their code and their architecture, right? And so it's easy for us to just go through what we're used to, but a good way of measuring that is just seeing if we're as excited about our customers and as we are about um, our users and how they're experiencing our app. And I think a message of hope that I want to give, because right now it's like pretty uh, scary time for engineers. I'm actually a co-host at Utah.js, and we see engineers left and right coming in layoffs and trying to look for a job, and the market's hard. But I actually think that we're living through some truly historic moments, and I'm so excited for what's next. And as much as I want people to level up, and to be concerned that maybe, well, the skills that we've learned 4 years are maybe a little bit less valuable. I want to also bring this message of hope because I think the future is exciting. And I was watching a movie with my wife a few months ago, one of my favorite movies, Harry Potter, watched dozens of times. And there's this guy, Dumbledore, that said something I had never really thought about before. And he said, uh, historic days seem so ordinary when you're living them.
Hmm.
And I think we're living through some historic days right now. And we have the hindsight benefit beforehand to say that we're going to make history. And I think the reason historic days exist is because we make them historic in the first place. And I think that will be up to each of us. And so, yeah,
I
thanks for
love
having
that
me.
message of hope. I'm gonna ask or dig a little deeper on your homework assignment. What's a specific thing that somebody can do to start to care more about their users than they care about their code?
Take the
And it
first
doesn't
story.
have to be like, oh, just do this one thing and all of a sudden you care more. But like, what's a thing that can kind of nudge them closer in that direction?
Um, yeah, I would say take the first story that you have assigned to you, or whatever way you get things assigned to you at work, and go and talk to 3 different potential users, maybe different personas, different types of users. Maybe if you're building tools for developers, go and interview a couple of developers. But resist, even if what you're doing is very like a tiny part of the whole of maybe this bigger epic, go and understand that and go talk to 2 or 3 people about that. I think what you will learn is much more valuable um, than if you just finish that your own tiny story and move to the next one, and the level of impact that you would be able to have on it altogether.
I love that. That's a great piece of homework. Thank you so much, Lucas. What's the best way for people to follow you online, and if they want to follow up with you with questions, how do they do that?
Sure. I have a weird last name, and so I was able to buy mylastname.com, so you can find me at varga.com or lucas.varga.com, which is pretty neat. Sometimes I will write like a blog post or two about thoughts I have on product engineering stuff. I'm on LinkedIn, Lucas Wargha, and also on X, so that's how you reach me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lucas. Really appreciate you and your time, your insights, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody else in the next one. Take care, everybody.
Thanks. Good to be here.